Amen. No, no. First, a quick song. Bring it in the sheaves. Bring it in the sheaves. We come. Bring it in the sheaves. All right, we're done. And this works. So we're talking tonight. We're starting on chapter 8. We're going to talk about chapter 8, which is entitled "Real Men Need Real Friends," and it's kind of a continuation of what we talked about last week in the fact that men need to seek out positive male friendships. And tonight we're going to talk about how that goes about and the importance of different levels of friendship. So we'll just dive right in, shall we? Go back to your childhood. Everybody lean back in your chair and close your eyes. And we're going to go back to our childhood. And I'm going to have you crying before it's all over. When you were a child, can you turn this one on, Josh? I must have turned it off trying to get this one on. When you were a child, did you have an imaginary friend and you just turned that one off? Okay. Did you have an imaginary friend when you were a child? No. Nobody did? No. Rhonda's not here, and I meant to text her because she told me once that when any only children here? If you were an only child, raise your hand. Did you have an imaginary friend, Tammy? Often only children have imaginary friends because they don't have brothers and sisters to play with, and if they don't have anybody in the neighborhood, then they make up friends. It's normal. It's not a strange thing. As long as it doesn't come into adulthood. We'll talk about that in a minute. Rhonda had an imaginary friend, and I can't remember what it was. It was an elephant or something, and it had a name, and it lived under the couch. And she used to take food and put it under there, and obviously when that was discovered, it was a problem. But she can tell you about that sometime. But if you were an only child, maybe you had one. If not, maybe not. Or maybe you didn't make friends that easily, so you had imaginary friends. It's not an unusual thing. But just about everyone eventually gives up their imaginary friends from childhood, right? We hope. Because it's not healthy. If you keep them, what's it called? Schizophrenia, yes. Speaking of therapy, Tammy. If your imaginary friends follow you into adulthood, that's a problem. But here's what happens. We do continue it as adults. What we were just talking about. Were you paying attention, or were you talking to how do we continue this as adults? We give up the imaginary friends of childhood, but we come up with other substitutes for real friendship as adults. Hey, Pastor, how you doing? Now, when we're children, and if we're an only child, or if we don't make friends easily, or if we don't have a lot of friends, we'll make up friends. But when we're adults, sometimes we shy away from close friendships, and especially for the men, I'm talking about male-to-male friendships. Women make friends much more easily and have what I would call covenant friendships much more easily than men do. Men shy away from what I'm going to call covenant friendships. We'll talk about that as we get more into the lesson tonight. But men shy away from it, and so they come up with substitutes for a real male friendship. Okay? And what am I talking about? What happened there, son? There it goes. So many adults today refuse to take off their armor with anyone. Remember last week? Was everyone here last week that's here tonight? Last week we talked about David and Jonathan. I believe it was 1 Kings chapter 18. Was it 1 Kings chapter 18? Joanne, you can look it up if you want. In that story, the Bible says that Jonathan took off his armor and he gave it to David as a sign, as a symbol of the covenant that they had together, of the friendship that they shared, and of his desire to give everything that he had, not just his tangible things, the stuff, but in symbolism, he was giving him emotionally. He was saying, I am willing to invest in you, and I know that you're willing to invest in me, and we're going to have a covenant friendship. And that's what it meant when he took off his armor. He made himself vulnerable, he made himself open, and he literally he gave of himself to his friend and knew that it was going to be a two-way street in the relationship. Now, today, and I don't think it's a coincidence that it was armor. He took off his weapons, he took off his armor and gave it to David. Today, we walk around with our full armor on and we never take it off. We never let anyone in. And this is a problem. It can be a problem in marriages. It can be a problem in all our relationships. But especially for men, we don't open ourselves to other men. Okay? We won't take off our armor with anyone. We are closed off. Okay? And this was me. This was me. For the 10 years I was away from God, my wife did not get in. And even before that, I didn't let her in very much. Pastor, you had your hand up. No. It's not everyone, but many men have this problem, and it keeps them from having close male friendships. Many men don't want to open themselves to anybody. Their wife, people at work, or a male friend. Now, they'll talk about sports, they'll talk about fishing, they'll talk about NASCAR, they'll talk about anything, but they won't talk about their feelings or what's inside or their struggles.
Well, what are you doing ordering a quarter pounder of cheese? That's why people are closed off. Because they're judged when they don't do exactly what people think they should do. So they hold stuff to themselves so that they don't have to hear opinions and wrath and all that kind of stuff. What was you doing ordering a quarter pounder of cheese anyway? So I wasn't saying that to put her out. I love my wife. He's absolutely right. I need to be watching my weight. You know what I mean? I'm growing in the Lord, but I'm also just growing. So, yeah, but anyway, the point is when we talk about putting on an armor or facade, I like to use the word facade. We all do it because we
Well,
It's a safe zone.
let me talk about a male-to-male friendship. And for sure, a marriage should be the closest relationship that you have. But you can also have close male friendships. Okay? Pastor, you and I have a close friendship. I just said for 10 years I was closed and I never took my armor off. And for 40 years before that, I didn't take my armor off very much, not even with my wife. But this man knows things about me that no one else knows. That I have trusted him to do what? Now, if you've been here the last few weeks, I hope you remember what I've been teaching. To keep what? To be a vault and hold on to my what? Secrets. He knows things about me that no one else knows, that if he wanted to spread, he could hurt me. Okay? This is what men have a hard time doing. And I had a hard time doing it. But I knew when I came back to God that the only way that I was going to succeed in serving God was to find somebody that I could be open with, that I could share my weaknesses. Because guess what, man? There's nobody here that's Superman. There's nobody that's invulnerable. There's nobody that doesn't have a weakness, that doesn't have a weak spot. So you can walk through life and hide that weakness from the world and just you and God try to work it out. Or you can find some men that you trust that you're going to let into your inner circle, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, that you can say, you are, whatever, however it was that Jonathan and David said it in 1 Kings 18. I can't remember the exact phrasing. But when they said their hearts were knit together, and you could say, when I am struggling, I'm going to lean on you. And when you're struggling, you can lean on me. Right? Now, he knows, I hope, that anything he shares with me, I'm not going to condemn him. And I know that anything I share with him, he's not going to condemn me. And that's what a covenant friendship is all about. Okay? This is what we need in our lives. We need people that we trust and that trust us, that we can take off our armor with, because when we never take off our armor, bad things happen. And Pastor, if you were having a bad day, I would have liked you to text me or call me and share that with me and let me get under your shoulder and help you, because that's what I'm here for. Amen? That's what friends do. And that's what we're supposed to be finding in this life. Now, this may be a new concept to you. You may kind of been a loner through your life, and that's okay. But you can get there if you start walking on a different path. When we don't take off our armor, we don't want to be open. We don't want to be vulnerable. This is a big thing with men. We don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want nobody to know our weak spots. When you've been hurt, when you've been abused, when you've been mistreated, you begin to have an internal conversation that is not true and from the devil, that says, I've been hurt my whole life, And in this new relationship, it's just a matter of time before this person hurts me too. And that is an internal conversation that we carry. And so what we do then is we say, the best way to protect myself from this person hurting me again is to keep my armor buttoned up to make sure that they can't hurt me again. And so then what we do is we shut them off. And we lose the benefits of that relationship because we have a negative conversation going on in our mind that's from the devil. Jesus had 12 friends. One of them betrayed him. But he didn't let that stop him from loving all of them. The other thing we don't do when we don't want to take off our armor is we don't want to be accountable. We don't want to have to answer to anyone for what? For laziness, for not following through, for not keeping our word, procrastination, whatever it is. When you have a covenant relationship, you're accountable. Okay? Let me use me and Pastor again as an example. It's what I know, so to me it's ready. When I came back to God, me and him got together. I said, Pastor, if you'll keep me accountable, here's the 4 things that I struggle with. And I want you to ask me regularly if I'm keeping them up before God. And you want to know what the 4 things are? No, he knows. You don't need to know. But I told him what my 4 weak spots are. And now he keeps me accountable for that. But see, I'm 50 years old, and in 50 years, I've never done that with anybody. And I've been a Church of God pastor. I was a pastor. I was not a leading pastor in the state, but I was heading in that direction. Okay? I'm not bragging. That's just where it was. And in 50 years and in 20 years of ministry, I had never had an accountability partner, a friend, a covenant friend. And that's probably one of the main contributing factors to me falling away from God. You had your hand up, Aaron. Oh, okay. Oh, Carol. Yeah. And this goes back to what I talked about last week in love. And I'll address that in just a second. Pastor has his hand up. Absolutely.
It doesn't mean I don't love you, don't mean I don't care about you. It means that I'm trying to divide myself amongst them.
Amen. Yes. He's like the bread, and you guys are the 5,000. You know, he's got to be broken into many pieces to feed many people. So you can't take a whole basket. Okay? He's the pastor, but we're different. We can invest, right? Now let's see the difference, okay? Let's see the difference. All right? Watch the difference here. And we're talking about loving people. And again, listen, pay attention. Table 3. It's about the people. It's about the people who are not here. Okay? If I consider this group to be the core, then there's 30 other people who are outside the core that we want to bring into the core. And I'm talking about people who are here on Sunday morning that are not here right now. People that are here on Sunday morning that are not at the brook. And we want to love them into the core. How do we do that? First, we want to love them into a first we're going to use the Amish method. She said shun them. Treat them like they're dead to us. Shunning. We first we want to love them into a full commitment to the church. Then we want to love them into the core. Watch the difference. You ready? Okay. Sunday morning. Hey, how you doing? Bless you. Bless you. Okay. Now, hey, Donna, good to see you, man. I haven't seen you in a few weeks. How you been? How you been? Good? What's been up with you? Does it bother you to talk in front of all these people? Okay. What was the difference? Name 3 differences. Name 3 differences. Just name one. I took more time. Name one. I sat down on her level. I made contact. What else? There's another one. I called her by name. Look, folks, listen. If you want to know a powerful thing on Sunday morning that will affect people, learn their name, and the next week they come back, call them by name. I'm telling you, it will affect people. And look them in the eye when you use their name and communicate to them verbally and non-verbally that you care about their life. It's not about walking by and shaking their hand and saying, bless you, bless you. That's not love. No, because you haven't given. For God so loved the world that he gave. Okay? So I mean, we kind of got off the track there, but I want us to make this who we are. Because I read a book last week or the week before, and I'm going to recommend it to Pastor. I'm going to, no. It's actually called When Fish Fly. Rhonda gave it to me. She had read it. But in that book, there's one point that came through to me in the whole book. I mean, the book is good, and it's that if you're going to be successful, it's about what you are. It's not about what you do. The guy is the owner of a fish market in Seattle. And he went through a total transformation when he decided that he wanted to stop doing things and he wanted to start being something. And when he taught his people, we're going to be this, and we're not going to worry about what we do so much as what we are. And when we are determined to be what our vision says we are, then we'll do all the things that we're supposed to do because we want to be what our vision says we are. So when I stand up here and I say, do we want to be a church that is known for its love, right? We want to be a church of love, then we're going to do the things that show love. We're going to love people in our doing because we are that. You see? And that's the difference. If I love Donna and I care about her as a person and I am concerned about her well-being and I want her to succeed as a believer and as a wife and as a woman of God, then I'm not going to walk by on, hey, Donna, and just move along. I'm going to stop and I'm going to touch her and I'm going to look in her eye and I'm going to get on her level and I'm going to find out where she is. And if she's struggling, I'm going to get under there symbolically and I'm going to bear her up and strengthen her. And if she needs companionship, I'm going to let her know. Text me during the week if you need somebody to pray with. Whatever it takes. We have to be a church that loves, and people will see that. We can learn and have all the materials and everything. Do this. But if we haven't been that, just doing the things isn't going to make a difference. But when we decide that we are that, people will see it. So, we come up with all these substitutes for real friendship, for covenant friendship, for David and Jonathan friendship, right? So what are our imaginary friends of adulthood? We don't have elephants that live under the couch, but what do we have? Okay. Some people are way into superhero movies. Christy said Facebook. Yes. That is a substitute for real friendship. Because you can have 500 friends on Facebook and you can have no covenant friendships. And you can spend hours on Facebook and zero time with a real person who's looking in you in the eye and saying, "What's up with that blank?" Right? So what are our imaginary friends of adulthood? Any others? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Somebody said it. Your job can be an imaginary friend. You put yourself into your job and you put all your energy into your job, and then that way you don't have to worry about friends because you're just working so hard and doing whatever. Like if you have your own business or whatever, you might spend all your time, and that is your friend. Do you hear that? Okay. At the end of this lesson, we will have an altar time where we can have repentance and change. So our job is an imaginary friend. A hobby. Facebook is a hobby, right? For some people, it's an obsession, not just a hobby. Right, entertainment. Books. Hobby. Right? Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with having a job. I recommend it for everyone. There's nothing wrong with having a hobby. Hobbies are fine, but they have to be in the right place. Okay? When your hobby becomes an obsession and you ignore friendships to engage in a hobby, then it becomes a substitute for real friendship. Okay, for men, what's a big one? Woo! Thank you, Christy. Sports. Big imaginary friend. We are obsessed with the Ravens. We're obsessed with the Redskins. We're obsessed with the hockey team. We're obsessed with whatever. Okay? And we put all our energy and time into that. And that's our imaginary friend. Now, here's another one. Get ready. This is for the men. My wife is my best friend. So I don't need any friendships because my wife is my best friend. Now, I said this for 10 years because my wife was my only friend. I apologize, but that button on my computer was broke. And so whenever I hit it, nothing happened. So I'm sorry. I blame Steve Jobs for making an inferior product. But this is not healthy either, because a real balanced life will have a strong, healthy marriage, but then it will also have strong, healthy, same-sex friendships. Male friendships if you're a man, female friendships if you're a woman. Those friendships do not take the place of your marriage, but they complement your marriage, and they complete you as a person. Why is my wife is my best friend not a good thing for men? What? Okay. That's not what I'm thinking of, but I accept that as an answer. Why is my wife is my best friend not healthy? What is it? Absolutely. She does not know what it is like to be a man. And women, you need female friends because he doesn't know what it's like to be a woman. You need someone that you can talk to who understands what it's like to be you. Okay? Your wife can love you like her own soul, but if that's the only person you have to talk to, listen, my wife and I are as close as any two people I know, and I love her, and we talk all the time, and blah, 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 but she doesn't know what it's like to be a man. And there's things that I tell her, and she says, that doesn't make sense to me. Obviously, because you're a woman. And you know, so we're not on that same level there. So we need male-to-male friendships. Women, you need female-to-female friendships. Let's talk about the friendship pyramid. And we'll use Jesus as our example. When we have male-to-male friendships, women, when you have female-to-female friendships, you're going to have roughly 4 categories, or 5, depending on how you look at it. All right? And we're going to look at Jesus as the example, okay? John, the apostle, was considered to be the one who was the closest to Jesus, right? Now, he is called the one who leaned on Jesus' breast at supper, and that was in the Gospel of John. So in some ways, he's self-promoting, but we'll take it as the truth either way. Let's say John is the closest human to Jesus. He is Jesus' best friend. There are things that Christ talked to him about that he didn't talk to anybody else about. Who received the revelation of the apocalypse? John. So in a lot of ways, he received knowledge that no one else received. He also was given a gospel that is different from the other gospels in many respects. It has stories and things in it that are not in the other gospels. There's a lot of things in there that are in the other gospels, but nevertheless. So John is that one close person. Now, does that mean everybody should have one best friend? No, but it helps if you have that one covenant friendship that is closer than any other, that you know you can trust that person with anything, and they will not share it, and they can trust you with anything, and you will not share it. You keep each other's secrets, okay? But then after John, you have Peter and James, who were also very close to Jesus. In fact, if you read in the Gospels, you hear Peter, James, and John. Peter, James, and John. Peter, James, and John. Peter, James, and John. It's like those 3 were always right there next to Jesus. They were like his immediate bodyguards. All right? And T.D. Jakes calls that the inner circle. The inner circle of friendship. In Jesus's inner circle were Peter, James, and John. There were things that Peter, James, and John were told that that the other disciples weren't told. There were things that they were exposed to that the other disciples weren't exposed to. When Jesus went into the Garden of Gethsemane, who did he go with? I believe that's true. I didn't look it up beforehand because I just thought about it now, but you can look it up later and see. Now, we know when they came to arrest Jesus, Peter was there because he cut the guy's ear off. So we know he was there. But, yeah, they were taken into the garden when Jesus prayed before he was arrested. So they were the inner circle. Now, this is called a friendship pyramid. Why is it called a friendship pyramid? Yep. Look, the higher you go on the pyramid, the lower the number gets. So that when you get to the very top, you theoretically have one. That is your best friend, your one person. Then as you go down, you get more people, but it is a lower level of intimacy. It is a lower level of trust. It is a lower level of openness. Okay? And somewhere in here, the armor comes off, but also somewhere in here, the armor is on. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But just be aware that everybody's not in the inner circle. Otherwise, it's not an inner circle. It's just a big circle. Sister Carol. Well, you'll have to take that up with the author. But for the purposes of this study, we're going to talk about John and Peter and James and John as the inner circle. But there were women there stipulated. All right, next we have the 9. Who are the 9? Judas was one of the 9. Who are the 9? The 9 are the other disciples, right? I'm not asking you to name the 9. I just want you to know that the 9 are the other 9 disciples. You have 3 in the inner circle, and then you have 9 who are also very close, who travel around with Jesus everywhere, who eat with him, who spend all this time with him, but they are not in the inner circle. They are close, but no cigar. No. They're close, but they're not inner circle. So let me see if I can find this here. I meant to read this. Okay. On the next level of Jesus's friendship pyramid were the 9 other disciples. Now, I am not suggesting that you go find 9 guys for the next level. Your level 9 may only have 5 board members, but I am pointing more to how Jesus layered his relationships with men in categories to suggest that you diminish your risk when you limit your levels and layer your access. Some people are in your life because they stimulate you intellectually. These are men who engage you in stimulating conversations and speak effectively about things for which you're passionate, whether it's chemistry or world affairs. These friends provide you with shop talk and intellectual exchange. So he's talking about friends who are going to be closer than just acquaintances, people that you do things with, people that you hang with, people that you have occasional substantive conversations with, but they are not in your inner circle. Okay? You need to guard yourself as to who is in your inner circle. These are people that can be trusted. These are people who have a track record. These are people who have shown you by the way they live and the way they act that they are trustworthy. These are the people who get into the inner circle. But then you're going to have other friends that you enjoy spending time with, that you enjoy doing things with, who stimulate you on some level, according to TD Jakes. And you're going to enjoy hanging out with them, but you need to be careful that you don't give yourself to them, give them all your secrets as though they were in your inner circle. Some people, for whatever reason, as soon as they make a friend, they want to put everything on them. Bad mistake. Bad mistake. Because you don't know if that person is trustworthy or not. And some people, they make new friends just to mine secrets. They're twisted and they're unhealthy. And they make new friendships just to get into other people's lives. And then when they find out things, it winds up on Facebook, or it winds up in the job, or who knows where it winds up. Guard your secrets. That's why we should have a vault, and not everyone should know the combination. Okay? So we have the 9, and I call this level 9, just because it refers to the 9 disciples. Okay? Level 9 is the people who are good friends that you like hanging out with, but you don't open yourself to them completely. Now, you may have occasions where you have sensitive conversations, where you share things with them, but you're never going to give them something that they can turn around and hurt you with it. Okay? That's for the inner circle. All right? Now look at the next level. The 70. You remember the 70? Luke chapter 10. The Lord appointed 70 others also and sent them 2 by 2 before his face into every city and place where he himself was about to go. The 70. Now, these were obviously people who were connected to the ministry. They were obviously people who could be trusted to have ministry delegated to them. These were people who were followers of Jesus. But these were not the disciples. There were 70 others, and Jesus delegated to them ministry to go before him into these cities where he was going to visit, to go into those cities and tell the people, guess what? Messiah's come. Guess what? There's Jesus of Nazareth is coming, and he is going to meet your needs, and he is going to give you the words of God. And, they would go before, so that when Jesus would come into a city, there would be a buzz and there would be an expectancy of what was going to happen. And so this is how, when you read the Gospels, every time he went somewhere, there was a crowd, because they had gone before and they had prepared the ground. And when he went into the city, they were ready and they were expectant and they were hungry. The 70. So let's see what Jake says about the 70. These are persons with whom you have a good working relationship, but who do not know you and should not know you personally. Jesus related to them only through the delegation of duties and the dissemination of responsibilities. Yes, he laid hands on them. He even commissioned them, but he didn't engage with them on deeper levels. They didn't eat with Christ. They didn't spend time in that level 9 or in the inner circle. Okay? He did not engage on deeper levels. I have seen great men destroyed over and over by making friends of those with whom they should remain professional. No weakness is shown on this level, no resting with them, no weeping with them. Jesus kept his relationship with them clearly defined. These guys can't handle you crying in the garden in a moment of frustration in your career, not enjoying your marriage, or dealing with an embarrassing problem with your son. They need only know that you can tread on serpents. That is good wisdom right there. The 70. Now, Pastor, you hit this nail right on the head. You are a pastor of a church, and on any given Sunday, there's 50 people in here, and everybody wants a piece of you, and everybody has a need, and everybody wants prayer, and everybody wants to share something. And in a sense, that's the way it was for Christ. And these 70, he kept himself at a professional distance from them. He loved them, he ministered to them, he taught them, but he did not let them see him behind the scenes. They did not see him in the garden. They did not see him behind closed doors. The extent of his relationship to them was teaching, delegation of authority, laying on of hands, and sending out. Because they weren't ready to be trusted. They weren't ready to see that. And they weren't in the inner circle. They weren't even in level 9. They were the 70. And that's okay. You can have friends that you're acquainted with, that you rub shoulders with, but you don't invest yourself in them emotionally. That's fine. And you can still love them, and you can still give positive things to them. But and he makes the point, and he's talking about pastors, I know it, when he says that he's seen great men ruined by their. When you give yourself away too quick to somebody who is not on the right level, you hurt yourself. This is where gossip, this is where Facebook is a cancer on the world. That we give ourselves too quickly to people, and they turn around and put it on Facebook, and 500 people know about it. And then a year later, somebody comes back and says, "Oh, I didn't know you did this and this and this." And you're like, "How did you find that out?" Don't give yourself away to the 70. All right? And then at the bottom level, we have the 5,000. Go ahead. Yep. And who is the master at twisting words? Leviathan and Lucifer. Go back and read the story of the temptation of Eve and look at how Lucifer subtly twists God's words when he talks to Eve. And you see that Satan has been doing this for 6,000 years, twisting to maximum negative effect. Yeah. So sometimes even if you trust the wrong person with the right words, they'll twist it and it will come out as the wrong when it comes back to you. Because sometimes you can't even trust a person that's in the 70. You can't even trust them with the truth. Because when it comes back, it'll be a lie. In the Gospels, you can read places where Jesus says, "I have told you this, but I have not told them this." Or "I have revealed this to you, but I have not revealed it to them." What was he saying? This right here. He was saying, disciples, there's things that I am letting you know that everybody doesn't know. And then in other places, he might say, Peter, James, and John, there's things that I'm letting you see that even these guys haven't seen. Because Jesus knew the value and the importance of guarding his friendships and guarding his relationships. And we got to learn the same thing. It'll help us. Now, the 5,000, here's what Jake says about the 5,000. The vast majority of people in your life are there for the feeding and not for the friendship. They are with you for what they can get from you. While that may sound crass, it is true. However, what makes you able to cope with their incessant appetite is the fact that you have a few folks on higher levels who contribute to you, irrigate you, and make it possible for you to have enough deposits to withstand the constant withdrawals that the vast majority of people will make from you throughout life. The 5,000. This is the masses. Now, most people in surface relationships are not there to give to you. They're there to get from you. All right? And you need to understand that. There's nothing wrong with that. But you need to understand, don't give them anything of your heart. Don't give them anything of your secrets, because they're in the 5,000. They're not even in the 70. Okay? So at what point does the armor come off? And really, there's no right or wrong answer, but it's either here, or maybe it's here. I think you're right. And some people might say that I only take off all of my armor for that one person that I trust the most. And that's fine. You decide when to take off your armor, but there needs to be at least one person that you do take off your armor with. Because if you never take off your armor, that is also damaging. You must have at least one relationship that is totally open. And I recommend more than one, because what happens if that one, heaven forbid, what happens if that one dies, or if they move away, or is unavailable, right? You should have more than one. You should have like 3. Peter, James, and John. Okay? So, everybody got this? Why so much analysis? Why are we talking about this at such length? I'll tell you why. If you don't understand this, what can happen? Yes, ma'am. Yeah. If you don't understand this, what can happen? There you go. You'll get bit by a snake or a crocodile, as Pastor said. You will let someone in too close, someone on the wrong level. You'll give them too much of yourself, and they'll turn around and they'll hurt you with it. Now, like Pastor said, I don't want to hear the whole story, but how many has been through this in their life where they let somebody on the wrong level too close, and that person turned around and hurt you with what you gave away? Just raise your hand up. It's no shame, because it happens. You give away your secrets to the wrong people, bad things can happen.
They can't handle give them from the inner circle.
Yeah. There's always going to be charlatans and fakes, but we can't always avoid that completely. Yes.
My experience, I'm always using the lesson I learned from my experience to help people through something. We don't have to expose ourselves to be able to help people.
Right.
You don't have to say, I did this and this is what happened to me. You can say, well, I would be careful there because this is what can happen if you don't. Anyway.
I just guard yourself. Somebody comes into a situation that you don't already know, and you might have an impulse to share everything you went through, but that could be, number one, it could be damaging to you if they're not trustworthy. Number two, it may indicate something in you that is crying out to be needed or vindicated or I don't know. It's hard for me to put it into words, but just the best advice there is to guard yourself until you know that that person is worthy of trust. Once you know that they are worthy of trust, then you can go further as a covenant friendship, not as a, you remember when we handed out the sheet the other week with the three. Now, if you have somebody that's going through something and you're trying to lift them up, you don't want to share. If you're in this paradigm here, you don't want to give them a lot until it gets to this point. Once they have risen up and have shown that they're worthy of trust and it gets more to a relationship of equals, then you can give them more of your secrets, so that you're guarding yourself. Yes, Lord S. Go ahead.
I also want to say that may take not months, but it might take years.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? To develop that friendship, that trust. It might not come, within months, but years.
Right. It takes time. And that's fine. We got time. That's right. Now, you are also building trust with them at the same time they are building trust with you. But somebody comes into the church. Let's say somebody comes into the church as a visitor. They come to the altar. They pour out at the altar. And then in greeting them after church and in shaking their hand and looking them in the eye and learning their name and giving of yourself to them and showing them that they are worth your time, you find that they have been through a very similar thing to what you went through. And they came in and they are the one in need and they are the one in the altar crying out to God. And so now you want to help. Oh, let me help. And so right off the bat, you're at a relationship where you are above and they're below and you're trying to pull them up because they've come in as a visitor. Maybe they're new to serving God or they're certainly new to the church. So yes, if you don't know them, they have to learn to trust you and you have to learn to trust them. But the way to get them to trust you is not to tell them everything about you. It is to get to know them over time and learn each other over time. And then as you learn each other over time, you will learn that let me warn you. There's people that jump from church to church. And they got problems and they spread problems. And some people are attention addicts and some people are counseling addicts and some people are chaos addicts. And they jump from church to church and they spread chaos and they bring their problems and they don't want to be rooted. They don't want to grow. They don't want to be discipled. Do you know what the root of disciple is? Discipline. They don't want to learn discipline. They just want to go somewhere and cry in an altar and have people pay attention to them. And you got to be careful. Just like a puppy that's squealing at the animal shelter is irresistible. People in the altar who are crying out to God are irresistible. You can't resist grabbing that puppy and cradling it in your arms and loving it. And if somebody comes to the altar, they come in as a visitor and they come to the altar, God help me, God help me. Oh, and you find out they've been through what you've been through. There is an overwhelming urge to pick them up and love them. And that is great. Love them. But with love comes discipleship. And with love comes discipline. And with love comes the crucifying of the flesh. And if people aren't willing to crucify their flesh and be discipled and come under authority and learn to obey, then they don't want to be here. Because that's what we're doing. So we want to love them. We want to partner with them, but we won't covenant with them until they've shown that they're worthy of trust. And then as they grow and as they make a commitment, then we begin to share and open our vault with them and let them in.
I'll tell you what, man, that's good stuff. And I don't need to tell you that for you to know that. But the covenant thing, I mean, that's why we have covenant partners. But not everybody that says they're a covenant partner can be trusted because they're not committed. So just because you have a covenant partner with somebody, if they're not committed, most likely you can't trust them. One of the things I've always said was one of the things for covenant partnerships is for us to learn together on Wednesday nights. I mean, or if 75% of the meetings 75 that is. And that's what covenant partnership is, so that we can be committed to one another, learn one another's names, love one another, all that different stuff. So one of the signs I've seen over the 10, 11, 12 plus years, whatever, that we had to get in House of God, was those that are committed come on Wednesday night. Not saying that everybody's not committed that don't come on Wednesday night, but a majority of the time when you see people fall off Wednesday nights, they're normally not much out.
Is this going out on YouTube? Okay. Then I won't give this a illustration. Can it pause? Can you pause it? The YouTube is going to go off, and you should have been here, and you could have heard this. Sorry.